So, welcome to the broadcast, where I try and sort of dig deeper into politics so people can understand what it's like to be a politician. Today, I've got a special guest, but first, let's do the intro.
Yep,
Nice bit of music there. So,
lovely.
today, I've got a special guest. I've got Craig Garland, otherwise known as Garbo, and probably a few other things. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks for inviting me here.
So, I was thinking back. When I thought about inviting you on as a guest is about when we first met. Do you remember when that was?
No,
No, it was
no.
at the Rocky Cape Tavern. So I was meeting, it was,
I do, the abalone
yeah, so
divers. Yeah, that was a few years ago now.
it was.
Yeah.
So I hadn't been elected very long, I think.
Yep,
And I was the Labor shadow for primary industries and water.
yep.
And I was, meeting up with the ab divers who were having a fair bit of trouble with their quotas, which is probably still not really resolved.
No,
And there you were, and you wanted a meeting, and you wanted to talk about something else. Do you remember what that was?
no.
You remember what was
No.
bugging you 8 years ago?
Oh, was it salmon? Seals?
Seals.
Yeah, seal relocations. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that's when we first met, and it was pretty obvious from then that you were very passionate, and you had these seals getting dropped off right in front of where you were fishing. So,
Yeah. We had 20 years of that. The Liberal Party promised to do something about it, and they didn't. And it was a mental health episode by me chasing a seal relocator down the highway, and then ringing my industry rep, telling him what had happened. It nearly got violent. And then also another fisherman, a Vietnam vet mate of mine, was a bit encouraged about what I did. And then he rang my industry rep and said he was concerned about me. Craigie, he called me. He said he recognised the symptoms I was displaying, post-traumatic stress. He said he didn't want to lose another good mate. Craigie did his thing yesterday, and tomorrow it's my turn. And that's what got the ministers and the advisors up and about, and they announced on that, I think it was a Tuesday night, that they will be stopping the relocations on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
It's like a little Christmas present for us after shutting our fishery down. And because there was only a small number of us, salmon industry was huge, a lot of money, a lot of jobs. We were irrelevant. So it scared me after that. I thought I can't go chasing people down the highway and creating violent incidents. I actually shed a tear over it, and I thought there's a better way of doing this. And that's when I said to 5 crayfishermen after I dropped the bait off to them that I'm going to put my hand up for Parliament. One spat the beer out. The others tried to control the laughter.
Yeah.
And they were 2 weeks later, I did that election. I got 2,200 votes with 7 signs and a $700 budget. And I thought, oh, people do actually care. Because I guess for me, initially, because I've lived a pretty secluded sort of lifestyle, and people knew of me, but I thought, does anybody else care about this? And when I put my hand up, I found that people did, and then it just sort of went from that.
Yeah, so I suppose there was a few other things that lined up at that particular time. So there was the possibility of salmon going into the far northwest, which
That's right.
obviously hasn't come about. And
No.
I'm actually not sure if it ever will. But
No.
yeah, I suppose that was your first taste of a campaign. That was certainly my first time meeting you.
Yep.
And then there was about 100 elections later, and then next
7.
thing- yeah. So then.
Yep.
You managed to get into state parliament. So, like, I think one of the things I suppose we talk about is I got elected to parliament quite suddenly. So I had ran a couple of elections, 2010, 2014, and then I'd moved on because I hadn't been elected. And then all of a sudden, when Brian Greene resigned, I got back in on a recount, and before I knew it, I was sitting in parliament right for the budget session, so right into the thick of it, and a bit of a spin out. But for you, you probably had that longer lead up and almost unexpected. When you actually won, so when was that? That was 2024.
Yes.
Did you expect to win in that election?
Well, it was funny. I was burnt out. I think I'd done 5 elections in 4 years. I'd lost 8 kilos, and if you see my body, I've been 76 kilos forever. I was down to 67, 68. I was only 6 or 7 kilos heavier than my partner.
It blow you over.
Yeah, it consumed me. I've probably got a bit of obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't like letting things go, and if something needs to be done or needs to be said, I won't rest until I know I've extinguished every avenue. So that when I got elected, I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I had all my signs. I didn't need any funding. I was well drilled on where to put the signs to the most effect. I understood getting the message out through Facebook, and I said, oh, I've got nothing to lose. And in the middle of the afternoon that day, I thought, I'm going to get in, and I did on the smallest margin ever.
It was a bit of a amazing circumstance. It's almost like there was a little bit of luck involved, but you're obviously also you were pulling preferences from everywhere, which sort of got you over the line.
Yeah.
But I mean, what changed at that moment, do you think? Did anything did you realise what had happened, or, like, this is what future's going to look like, or what were you thinking?
When I found out I'd been elected?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was in the shed slinging a net, and I don't get phone reception in the far end of the shed. You had to walk out to the other end of the shed, and about 5:30, 6 o'clock, I think it was, I walked out, and my phone came into reception, and it was just ping, 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 Meg Webb, Ruth Forrest, like a lot of MPs, and I thought, oh my God, I'm in. And then, the great unknown. Like, it's one thing to run in campaigns and finally get elected, but then it hits you, you're in there. And I knew nothing about legislation. I understood a little bit about politics, but really I was a newcomer into the space. I was lucky I had Cody, my electoral officer. He'd been drilling buggery out of the Wynyard Council forever. They were quite happy that I appointed him because it saved them getting drilled by him. But I had him on board, but as far as legislation, that really concerned me. I thought, geez, I know nothing about this. I said a prayer, actually. I thought, geez, I hope someone comes out of the blue. And Steve, my advisor, did. He just came out of the blue. We met him at the Deloraine pub after Parliament one night, and Cody and him sat down, introduced ourselves, and then him and Cody spoke for 3 hours.
Right.
And I thought, you're the bloke.
Yeah.
And it was, as it's turned out, it's a good choice. He's very measured. He does his research. So yeah, I've been very fortunate with the people that I have. People see us on the stage in Parliament, but that's one part of it. It's the team behind, just like anything, the people behind you. And I'm fortunate in that sense. So,
but then there's also the logistics. So, okay, you've got to get to Parliament. You've got to have somewhere to stay. You've got to figure out when to arrive and when to leave.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what actually happens in Parliament.
Yep.
Like, it's not just question time and then go home. You've got legislation.
Yep.
But how did that, even just the whole, where do I stay? And
yeah, no, the whole thing right from the start, Shane, I didn't know what had hit me. I hate hotels. I generally avoid cliques, gangs, clubs, or entrenched forced views. I hate formalities. I hate the English sort of side of things, where it's all structure and ask and all the rest of it. So that first year, I was getting no sleep in a hotel I didn't like, with noises all night, turning up to Parliament, having to absorb, as you know, information every 10 minutes. You get briefed on one thing, and then before you know it, something else is coming along. So the first 12 months was the most difficult time for me, as far as not getting any sleep and having to absorb all this information. And at Christmas time after the first year last year, I thought, I'm doing things different next year. I'm a different beast in that place. You only have to look around. I stick out like a sore thumb. So I decided I'm sleeping in my swag. I'm going to find a quiet area where I can do so I can get a good night's sleep, so I can turn up to Parliament and do justice to the job that I'm expected of me. So, yeah, I made some big changes and it's worked.
But you're not sleeping under a bridge. You're sleeping at a friend's place. So
yeah,
let's just get that clear.
Yeah, I'm in my swag at Clifton, and all I hear there of an evening is the oyster catchers and a few crickets.
Yeah.
And I wake up in the morning fresh, and that's really important because we're doing important work. It was highlighted to me by Cody. There was one bill we were passing, and I thought, oh, this doesn't matter much. And he pulled me up. He said, no, this is going to affect someone or some group of people. So that's the importance of what work we're doing. Everything we do and pass and tick off, or don't pass and tick off, is going to affect someone in a big way. So it's sort of, he highlighted to me, everything is serious. So, yes, I'm in a good place now. Got good staff. I've got my routine worked out in Hobart. And I think I've got a bit of respect right across the parliament. I've worked in a few different areas, and even though I've had opposing views to people, we've had the respect to agree to disagree and respect each other. And I think that was important to me right from the start, that I get the respect of everyone in that place, because we're all there for the one reason. So,
Yeah, quite often people forget that too. They
do.
think that we're all in there for ourselves and so on. But I have a kind of view. I think we're all in there for the same reason, which is to make Tasmania a better place. The only thing is we have slightly different ideas on how to get there.
That's right.
Yeah, and we've also got to take different things into account too. Our different electorates, our different parties, our different supporters. It's more complicated than people give us credit for.
It is.
But like you also came in to a minority government first time round, and then you probably had an even higher profile in the second minority government. So how did you go the first time round? Well, you see, you've just been elected. You may have been thinking you're a chance. Now you're in. And the phone starts ringing because the government has to try and get the numbers. So obviously Labor, we decided not to try and form government in that particular election. How did that whole process go? All of a sudden, were you getting pounded or?
Oh, yeah. I think the first election when I got in there, I think the government weren't fully on board with a minority government and what it actually means. I think they were still stuck in the majority, my way or the highway headspace. That didn't fare well for them. We went to another election. There's a different attitude and approach to me now by the government, and also from me too, because I learnt quite a fair bit. To the point now, my marine plan that I'm progressing, got full support from the Premier, the Minister, the Blue CRC. I've had meetings with all them. There was a lot of perception that, like I said before, I was an anti-everything greenie rat bag. But my approach is to bring both ends of the spectrum into the middle and have that discussion and lay it all on the table and trying to get something that works for everyone and all concerned, find that middle ground. And I think the government this time round are fully aware of that, more so than they were in the first term that I did. So, it's a difficult space to work in because you're trying to get outcomes, and there's varying views, and trying to find that middle ground is I think the biggest challenge for all of us, all parties and all players in that space, because we're all there for the right reasons. There isn't one person I don't like in Parliament, not one. You get to know people, they've got their entrenched views, but they're all decent human beings with families and commitments, and basically we all want what's best for Tassie. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the things that I suppose people don't see as well is what happens behind the scenes. So you've also got a young family. So when I first got elected, my son, I think, was 3.
Yep.
Got a photo up on the wall the day that I was elected, just to remind me in a way about the changes. Because as I said, one day I was at home and the next day I was in Parliament. There wasn't even the period for the vote counting like you get after a normal election. So, my kids actually found it very difficult. And I remember my son, I'd come home and he'd almost reject me, because I'd always been around and suddenly I wasn't. And I realised that his issue was that every time I left, he thought that I'd be away for a week.
Yep.
And so to cope, I found a way around that was every time I left, I would let him know when I'd be back. And I still do that to this day. So I'll see you tonight, see you in the morning. Oh, I'm going away. I'll be home Thursday night, just to keep my family informed. As a 3-year-old, he struggled to cope. I suppose that's my story. So what happened to you? You've got a young family as well, and you've gone from being, the knockabout dad who does a bit of fishing, and now all of a sudden, you're on the news. You're away for periods of time, and how did the rest of the family cope with that?
Oh, it's hard leaving your kids. I'll be honest with you. Every Tuesday, the first sitting day back, I'm a bit shitty. But by the end of the day and the next day, I'm sort of fully on board with with it all and a bit more relaxed. But yeah, it is always hard leaving your kids, and you notice distinct changes. You go away for a week or two and you come back and it's like my daughter's turned into a teenager.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it is challenging there, but it's about management of your time. I try to make sure when I get back that even if I'm just sitting watching a movie with the kids or just mucking around in the yard, as long as I spend time with them and don't lose that connection, because it's pretty easy to lose. Like you say, you come back and things are different. And as we all know, kids are really important. If there's one priority, I guess it's above everything. It's your family and what it means to them. So yeah, that has been hard, but it's also brought them into a world that they otherwise wouldn't be involved in. You know? Arthur was sitting in the speaker's chair there
Yeah.
earlier in the year. They got to come and see Parliament, see how it rolls, and so yeah, it does provide opportunities, but there are yin and yang, and there's
Yeah.
good things, there's bad things, but it's just part of the job. So you've just got to make sure that you don't lose that connection.
So are they politically aware now, or are they just busy doing other stuff?
Oh, Gracie's really funny. Like, she's sort of politically aware and what have you, and gives me a bit of a serve every now and then. 'Cause, I've stuffed up a few times. I'm a bit more human than most, and it's been quite public. A few of the things that's happened.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that concerns me the most, when people are attacking you personally. I've got thick skin. I've been around 60 years. Nothing worries me. But it does, the effect on your family. And this is what I don't like. Sure, attack me, but leave my family alone. But I guess in effect, when they're attacking you, the family take it on board as well. And young kids in the school,
Yeah.
they verbalise what their parents are saying. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. But, I think they've become seasoned to it now. We're off to Manil again a day on Saturday, things like that, where I can take my family along and immerse them in a different culture and inform them. It's education.
Yeah. But that whole thing, I completely agree that, yeah, like I've got a thick skin too, but then you realise when someone has a crack at you and your family actually take it personally,
Yeah.
that they're trying to hurt their loved one.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you've had a couple of examples. I suppose the one that sort of hit the airwaves was, you got called all sorts of names at the Liberal Party conference.
Yeah.
Now, the Premier did reach out and apologise, but, I mean, those sorts of things aren't particularly helpful and hurtful.
Yeah, yeah, and I was scathing to the Mercury reporter that rang me the other day. I said, "Why did you even bother printing that?" He had some two-bob job that nobody knew, making disparaging comments like of a personal nature, and then you've gone and thrown it in the paper. Bit disappointed. I don't know what Liberal Party sitting members were at that meeting. I've had admissions from a few that they weren't there, and if they were, they would have said something. I think Jeremy was mowing the lawns that day. I don't think he was there. So
He might have been at the stadium rally, I suppose. That was
no,
on
he told me he
Sunday.
was mowing the lawns.
Oh, he's
that
mowing
day.
the lawns.
Yeah, that afternoon or
Yeah.
whatever. So he just, as soon as he became aware of it, he tried to ring me. I missed the call, and then sent me a message.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, like, I imagine there's worse said about me behind closed doors, and you should hear what my daughter says to me, if you know what I say. So yeah, it's water off a duck's back to me, but it does affect my family.
I mean, you talk about being more human than most. Then there's also the reason why you're riding your bike around a lot at the moment.
Yeah.
Because you obviously, I don't even know how that process works. So I've never actually been. So for those viewers out there who don't know, so Craig's lost his license, is tested positive to marijuana at a roadside test. I actually got breathoed the other day. I haven't been breathoed for a long time on the way to Parliament. I think it was at Perth. So what's the actual process? You got to lick something or spit in something? Or?
Well, what happened that day was a long weekend. I was driving my family with my boat, my lawnmower, whippersnipper. We're all heading to my property at Montague to have a bit of a weekend there. And the police vehicle came down off the hill in Smithton, drove in behind me, pulled me up in front of the police station. And he must have smelled. I had a bit of marijuana in a tobacco pouch, and he smelled that, and then put me on the lick test. They scrape your tongue, and then it gets sent off for analysis. I think it shows positive there, but then they do a
Right.
more thorough one. You go back to the station and they'll take 2 samples sent off. But in the process of failing the test, the policeman asked me, did I have a prescription
Oh,
for
right.
cannabis? And I said, no, why would that matter? And he said, well, if you had a prescription, you could have driven off.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. So it's not about impairment. It's just for, testing. I had to smoke the day before, but it can hang, I believe, for 48, 72 hours or something. So people say you're driving around under influence. Well, I wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just the residue was still in my saliva. So, and the policeman told me if I had a prescription, I could have driven off, but that was only half true, because then I found out if you didn't get a prescription from a Tasmanian doctor and then get it supplied through a Tasmanian chemist and
Yeah.
you failed a test, you would still be charged.
Right.
So then we go to Parliament, and you might just, the Poisons Act approached us. We didn't sort of bring it on, but they came and said, we're changing the law, and we just passed recently where you'll be able to get from a doctor, a chemist, anywhere and not be charged. And I believe right now in America, and that has to go through the upper house too, we've passed it in the lower house, but in America they're doing tests on impairment right now. Of course, there are no tests on impairment. So to say you're under the influence and you're a risk is not quite true. So we'll wait and see what those tests come out with. So
Well, I'll be interested in the US because now you've got states where it's just full on. There's
Yep.
no restrictions at all on marijuana.
no,
But I mean, doesn't it, like the medicinal marijuana is supposed to be different than the low THC, isn't it? So
you can get just cannabinol oil, I think, without the THC component, and I believe that's what they're giving to kids suffering seizures and what have you. It's effective. The THC, the psychoactive ingredient, is removed. So, but to me, the THC component is as important as the other stuff. So I've witnessed firsthand the benefits. In Canada, I think they decriminalised it, legalised it, whatever. It's a boutique industry. There's billions of dollars going back into the community. People going away from pharmaceutical, from opiates to cannabis, aren't going back to opiates. So the opiate industry knows this. There's a lot of opportunities in this state to grow it here, to supply it here, and we'd be better off. We've got a petition going at the moment to form a committee to look into all aspects of it. Not so much the decriminalisation, but accessibility, affordability. There was only 3 doctors in the state that you could get it off prescribed. 2 of them stopped taking. So we were once I failed the test, I was inundated by people that end of life as cancer patients that couldn't afford it, didn't know where to get it. So it's sort of inadvertently taken the whole parliament into a space that I think is good.
But it's interesting that when you look at the examples overseas where it has been legalised, basically THC has been turned into a commodity, and interestingly, the big players move in. They commoditise it, and you get the turbocharge. So we're not just talking about the old Tassie bush gear. We're talking about stuff that's it's basically turbocharging that chemical THC.
It is. I got my prescription came from Tasmanian Botanicals, but it came through a chemist in South Australia. So it's grown here, but I had to get it through a chemist over there. And I looked at it, I smelled it, I don't like it. It smelt wrong, it tasted wrong, and it felt like something had gripped my skull. And and the reality is you can access seed over the internet for $12. I think you can grow 3 plants in Canberra, can't you?
Oh, I don't know. I think South Australia had a couple of plants you're allowed to grow or something. But it's
so people here, your mum and dad pensioners and those that can't afford to pay $160 for a prescription, and then another $200. If they had the ability to get to grow in their own yard the plant and then take it along to facility to make it into oil for them to do it safely, they're going to be way better off monetarily wise. And as far as our economy goes, we're always looking to make more money and more business and more jobs and more growth here. So this is a growth industry, I think, that we can really sort of make sure that going forward, that's everyone's benefit, not for the big players, pharmaceutical companies, because they, like I said before, they know people going from opiates to cannabis aren't going back. Maggie Beer is making hemp gummies now and selling them. She was on opiates for a long time. It destroyed her gut bacteria. And if you understand what the gut bacteria gives a signal to the brain, so there's a lot of benefits in it, and I've seen those benefits firsthand. So it's just making it affordable, accessible, and doing it in a way that everyone benefits. So,
But there is also a downside. I know when we had debate about medicinal marijuana, I think I looked at some research which showed that you've got to be very careful because of the mental health effects. So there are, especially, I think it was, if I remember right, people under 18, if you have even a family history of depression or anxiety, you should absolutely avoid it.
yep.
So there are, we have to be careful, I suppose. And one thing, we've got other countries that are well ahead of us that we can have a look at.
Yep.
So hopefully, if we do go down this track,
Yeah.
we won't make the mistakes.
No, I have friends that they suffer from schizophrenia, and if they have a smoke, they flip.
Mm.
They flip. But there's an interesting, I don't know if it's still the same, but I was looking a few years back, there's been a dramatic rise in the amount of cannabis use in Australia. There's been a dramatic rise in the potency. We've gone from 10 or 11% THC back in the old days to 27, 28% stuff now. The schizophrenic rise, there's been no corresponding rise in schizophrenia with the rise in marijuana.
Yeah, I
usage.
don't think anyone's going to argue that marijuana causes schizophrenia.
No,
but if you
it triggers it.
Yeah, it triggers it.
Mm.
So
if you just avoid it, and that's what my friends have done. They just don't go near it because it flips them.
Yeah.
So people, it's like most things. People react to gluten.
Yeah.
Some people do, the rest don't.
But what I'm sort of getting out of this is that what you think there's a bit of a campaign coming that's going to be something that you're going to be working on?
Well, nationally, like in the last election, I was approached by the
Cannabis Party?
the hemp party in Nimbin, and I had a Zoom meeting with them, and that was very good. They wanted to throw some money to me. I said, there's no need for that. I don't take money. I don't like being beholden to anyone or anything. And I knocked back quite a bit of funding. That it was interesting, isn't it, when you start to rise up the standing in the political sort of space, and people see that and they want to throw money. And
I wouldn't know anything about that, Craig.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Oh,
it must be.
anyway, I knocked it all back, Shane. I don't like being beholden, but they were very encouraged by me. I didn't. All my friends were fully on board with the cannabis sort of things. You know, my mate Norm Vanderfeen. I don't know if you ever knew Norm, but he was prosecuted because he was supplying terminally ill people and end of lifers with oil because they couldn't afford it, couldn't find it. He got done, went to court, but he got a slap on the wrist because he took no money from it. He was just helping people that were in a bad situation. And I thought, why should it be up to an individual in his little house in the middle of nowhere to do what's needed to be done to deal with this? It's more a parliament role that sort of. So there's a lot of people out there that are taking it for whatever reasons, and I think the benefits far outweigh the negatives from it. You know, my mother-in-law, when I first failed the test, she belongs to the Gateway Church. She went along and asked everyone to say a prayer for me that morning, and one by one lady said, "Oh, my husband's been on it for 3 years. He suffers from rheumatoid arthritis." There was others seizures, and so the community's up to speed with it all. There wouldn't be a family, I don't reckon, in this state that hasn't got someone that smokes or knows someone or whatever, or is using in a medicinal way. So I think the time is right to sort of have that discussion and take it to Parliament, see where it goes.
So I suppose this gets us into another avenue. There's something that I'd probably like to talk about was that, how does Garbo make his decisions? So, I mean, for us, we sort of, being part of a political party, have a different way of making decisions than probably what you do, because you've only got to satisfy yourself and make a decision on a direction on any particular issue. So how do you actually make that choice? Because sometimes you're presented with stuff, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What the hell is this all about?
Yeah.
And then, whereas we can talk about the way that we do things, but how does Craig Garland do things?
Well, Steve, with a legal background, he worked for the public prosecution, whatever, he does his research, so he'll drag out whatever he can find. And with that clinical legal mind that he has. He's a big part. Cody does the same. But then I go around the other members in Parliament, the crossbench members. If I've got doubts about something, I'd like to get their views. And then it ultimately is sitting in Parliament and hearing the Labor Party's views and hearing the debate before I make an absolute call on it. Some things are clear cut where I'm more or less 100% sure of where I sit with it. But the rest of the time, I'm interested to hear what actually comes out on the floor.
Right.
And I think that was the original. That's how Parliament originally worked. It was on the quality of the debate determined where the vote went, not on the numbers game. We got more numbers than you. We'll ram through anything. So yeah, I like to listen. I like to hear from everybody. I think that's what everyone should be doing, and I guess we all do it. We all sit there. Sometimes the chamber's pretty empty, but people are watching on the screens, and
Yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, it's just taking on board everybody's view. And if you haven't got it 100% right, well, you've got the ability to, I got it wrong this time, and go that direction. And having the freedom as an independent and not being bound by like the caucus of the Labor Party, I can only imagine how difficult it must be if you've got differing views there and you're trying to get a consensus that you all agree on. That wouldn't work too good, eh?
Yeah, and that's probably why you're not in a political party. But
Yeah.
I mean, our process is that we have shadow ministers, so we have people who literally, or not literally, but they follow a minister and are the opposite to the minister. So they'll come and present their opinions on a particular issue, and then we have a discussion, and then we have a vote.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time we don't actually vote, but we come to a joint decision. And then we are bound by that joint decision, and obviously crossing the floor in the Labor Party is something that is very much frowned upon. We've got so that in at times you can win arguments, you can lose arguments, but you're bound by it, and that obviously comes back from our union roots, where solidarity was the number one thing, rather than a party who argues amongst itself externally. So the whole disunity is death thing.
Mm.
But we do, I would argue as well that we do get held to a different standard than you do, or independents do, or even the Greens do. And that's something that can be quite frustrating at times.
Mm.
So, but
Can leave, Shane.
you can leave, yes. But the other side of that, I know for a fact that I'm in Parliament because I'm a Labor member. I'm not in Parliament because Shane Broad's some genius who people want to put in. And I've put my eggs in that basket because the Labor Party and the Labor movement is something I've believed in for a long time, and you have to have the wins and the losses. You have to accept. And if the wins are massively outweighed by the losses, then obviously I could leave the party. But the other side of it is, and the thing, the difference between us and independents is we could be a party of government. So we could actually be making all the decisions day to day in a ministry, whereas an independent can't get that choice. So I suppose that's probably why we get held to a different account.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably give you an example of how we're held to a different account. So the last election, so the no confidence motion in the Premier, if you went out onto the street and asked Joe or Jill Public, who brought that about, it was Labor, it was Labor, it was Labor.
Yep.
Labor's a disgrace. But you voted for that.
Yeah.
I know you probably on that particular issue weren't as accountable. I'm not saying it's your fault, but in the public's eyes, it was Labor. It wasn't the Parliament. So it wasn't, because the vote was actually Labor, the Greens, Craig Garland, Christy Johnston, and one of the ex-Lambies, wasn't it? Andrew Jennings, who voted.
Yep.
So it was all Labor's fault, and yet
you got blamed for it.
We got blamed for it, yeah.
But it was a no confidence motion in Jeremy.
That's right.
And it wasn't Labor Party. The no confidence motion was in Jeremy, and he refused to step aside. And I believe that they were 1 or 2 votes shy of finding somebody else in their caucus to step up as leader.
Yes.
So they'd like to flip it and blame Labor for it all, but it was squarely with them. It wasn't Labor Party's fault. It was Jeremy Rockcliffe. The no confidence motion was in him. He'd have stepped aside, and they could have provided another leader, but they had nothing. and they couldn't agree on it. So
That's
what
right.
do? They control the narrative and blame somebody else. It's so
Well, they particularly blamed us or Dean Winter in particular. But I suppose I'm obviously interested in the way that you've described that because I completely agree.
yeah,
But what I was trying to say was it was all seen as Labor's fault rather than the Parliament's fault or the Independents' fault or the Greens' fault because that's the way the votes actually worked. It just, because we seem to be held to a different standard, it's Labor's fault completely.
mm,
And the same comes when we change our mind on an issue. Um, like pokies is a great example of that. That we lost an election on pokies as an issue. We changed our mind, and we've still got people
mm,
reminding us that was a horrendous backflip, and
mm,
we get completely bagged out about it. And yet, the Liberals promised the, the gaming card and limits on bets, and they completely backflipped on that. But
mm.
that's just a change of position. So
It's the narrative, isn't it,
yeah,
Shane? Who's
yeah.
ever controlling it and flipping it and putting that view, even if it is a bit one-sided. Um, yeah, that's been a bit of a learning curve there
Yeah,
about the whole sort of the narrative and controlling it and putting out a different message. And I think the first rule in propaganda is get in first. If you
yeah.
get in first and it'll stick, and if you keep saying the same thing often enough, people will believe it, and they know that they play the game very well. The Liberal Party, as far as narrative and media. So,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, they certainly are consistent,
Mm,
and what we see as well is
mm,
that they are ruthless.
mm. Oh yeah, when it comes to their survival, as you've seen with greyhounds, they'll throw anyone under a bus, even giving them a letter of saying, "No, we support you." When
Mm.
it comes to their survival, and that's what a few boys in the greyhound industry have realised, and I think a few of them voted Liberal.
Yeah, I
They
reckon.
realise
Mm.
now that when it comes to the crunch, your collateral damage for their survival, they don't care.
Well, we
And
certainly had Ben England in here talking exactly about that, and he had the letter and he read the letter.
yeah, he sent a
It was
copy.
pretty. The letter's actually sitting out there on a desk.
Yeah,
It's
he sent a
actually
copy to me.
yeah,
So yeah,
crystal clear.
yep.
And then
Mm,
they backflip on. I think it was even worse than that because they had greyhound, the people in the greyhound racing sector running around the industry saying, "Do not vote Labor because they will do a deal with the Greens to end your industry." And then
yep.
there wasn't even a come to Jesus moment for Rockcliffe. It was just simply in the days between
Mm,
the election result and forming government that he suddenly flipped on it, and
mm,
now he's pretending like,
mm,
oh, this was something that he's been building up in his mind for a long time, which is
mm,
complete nonsense.
mm,
He's made a ruthless political decision
mm,
to throw people who've supported him for 20 odd years under the bus. So
mm, mm,
I think people have to understand that they are ruthless,
mm.
and Jeremy Rockcliffe is a ruthless politician.
Liberals haven't changed my whole life.
Mm,
If it's about their survival, you'll go.
mm.
It's simple as that. So people are slowly realising that. Um, so so come next election, we'll see how their collective memory is and where the votes go. There's a general dissatisfaction with the parties, I guess, that's been coming to me from people, and that's why I guess my vote doubled last time round for a number of reasons. It's not just one thing, people don't just vote on one
Mm.
topic or whatever, but the general dissatisfaction with the political system and where we are in this state with the management or lack of management. So my hope is we'll gel um, in the next 3 years. Um, as far as a collective, uh, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
You know,
But one thing we do in Tasmania is that we have quite these black and white debates, don't we? So
Yeah.
you're either for the stadium or you're against the stadium,
yeah,
or you are pro salmon, anti salmon, or you're
Yeah.
pro forestry, anti forestry,
Yeah.
and we have these issues that just seem to divide the state. And we've got some big issues coming up that I know that you're really passionate about.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
So you've got some campaigns running at the moment. You've got the got some landholders obviously don't want transmission lines.
yeah.
You've been fairly anti Marinus.
Yeah, I have. Like Northwest, what it means for the Northwest, we're going to take the most impacts, the costs and everything associated with this Marinus project. And being on the Energy Committee and witnessing firsthand, like 1 or 2 major industrials will go under Marinus Stage 1. We saw where Treasury released their take on it all, that mum and dad power prices are going up 53-60%. And then you question the minister on it, and we're going, where's our information is the complete opposite, but they won't give us that information. So I smell a big rat in all this. And as far as Tasmania goes, like our role in there is to make sure we minimise the impacts, we minimise the costs given our debt situation right now. And what I see with this renewable energy space is there might be a little bit of corruption, a bit of money changing hands for a few of these proponents for us to pay for all the infrastructure so they can sell their power at a profit.
I don't think I'd be making that allegation, but I think this is a bit of a difference between an independent and a political party too, and that's probably the reason that I raised this. And I think one of the big problems that I see is that the Liberal government are just terrible at providing information and being open and honest. Their rule number one is just to not tell anybody. Like you got to drag all the information out of them, and as a result, there's this general suspicion, and they're also not very good at communicating about big ideas like Marinus. Why, and trying to make the argument about why it's a good thing rather a bad thing. And one thing that we see in politics all the time is if it's actually difficult to explain, so the electricity market and the way that even electricity systems work is very complicated and difficult to explain. But if you just say, I don't want it, that's actually very easy to explain. I just don't want it. So the difference between us and I suppose you as an independent is we have to think about what's in the state's best interest.
I do that. Don't worry about that. Like I've looked at this. We'll use Whaleback Ridge as an example, right? If we want to get to 200% renewable, this target they made up around the dinner table, you can do it all in the one place. You've got the existing infrastructure, you've got the degraded land, you haven't got migratory shorebirds, you haven't got Aboriginal cultural values, you haven't got eagles. That gets a tick from there. Granville Wind Farm's a success story. The salmon space, ultimately we're going to have to go on land. Waters are warming.
Well, we can talk about that too, but if we just stick with Marinus for a sec.
Yeah, well, stick to this. This is all to do with the energy. So the benefits from putting it all in the one place, minimising the cost and the impacts, and then feeding off that. If we're going to go to land with salmon, a big cost is power. So you've got all that on the West Coast. You've got all the infrastructure around Macquarie Harbour for the salmon farms. It's all there. So if you're going to transition onto land, the Wild West Coast brand, Wild West Coast salmon, like it's very marketable. And the first player out of those 3 big players to make the move onto land is going to drag the others along as well. So I see benefits of doing it in the one place, minimising the costs and the impacts, as opposed to putting wind farms everywhere. And if you're talking about Robbins Island, like I don't think you can come up with a worse place on the planet to be putting a wind farm. So you can forego all that. You can forego all the need for the transmission lines and the impacts and just do it in one place that's beneficial everyone and everything with a longer term view with the salmon side of things. And the West Coast, they've jobs and
the Whaleback Ridge needs Marinus. You will concede that. So you mean
eventually?
No, not eventually.
Eventually they might.
Because what would we do with 200%? Or no, because Whaleback Ridge, if it gets up to any sort of scale, would be completely enormous. And there's no way we can use that power, so we'd have to have Marinus.
Well, my feeling is let's just do it on a scaled approach for our benefit here in the state initially. So, because energy's going to change dramatically. I can guarantee you right now. And if you're locking yourself into something right now when things are going to change in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, I think we have to, given our debt situation and also the fact that people are coming to this place for our natural values, really should we be putting a wind farm in the biggest migratory shorebird habitat in the state? Also, where the 12 tribes or the 9 or 12 tribes met, all these things is what drawing people here. So if you can...
But there is a bit of an irony in that too, Craig, and I just pointed out that on one hand you're saying that landowners should have control of their property and shouldn't have to allow power lines to go through their property without their consent.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, a privately owned island, Robins Island, they shouldn't be allowed to put up
Well, you
wind
look at
turbines.
well,
So
why should the fishing community have a bridge causeway put across that channel area there, which, as you probably understand, it's the only
yeah,
place where two tides converge.
yeah.
Then the impacts on that community, they don't own the channel, but we have to forego that. The 110 kilometres of transmission, we have no avenues to recoup any money for that. And so we're paying for all of that. They don't own all that 110 kilometres of transmission area. They don't own the channel area. They don't own the migratory shorebirds. So sure, they can do whatever they want on the island, but why the hell should we pay for all of that when we don't have to?
So the other question is it in the state's best interest? So you've talked about power prices going up if Marinus goes ahead. The argument that's been put to me is if we don't do it, power prices will actually go up more. So, if you just let me thresh this out for a sec, we've got our ageing hydro assets, and hydropower is the third most expensive power in new power being available. So number one, I think, is solar panels, followed by wind, and then hydro is third, and then coal and all that sort of stuff. That's long down the list now. So there is an opportunity for us to, if we have Marinus and we have major wind farms develop, what we can actually do is get more value out of our hydro assets, and it will keep a lid on power prices in the long term. We're not talking in 1 or 2 years, we're talking in the long term. And that the way that the argument has been put to me is because we've got the third highest expense generation, that eventually we will actually become an expensive place for electricity compared to all the other areas that are going gangbusters with the two cheapest.
Yeah, well,
So, and then the other option, the other issue there is about, and this is where you get quite complicated, is that wind and solar don't work very well by themselves. They need something else to hold the
Firming.
grid up.
Yeah.
So they need firming. And then they also need things like, believe it or not, it's called spinning momentum, which is hydro dams are very good at. So because the turbines are spinning and they have a lot of weight, there's actually momentum that gets put into the grid. And without that, you could have major issues like Spain and Portugal had. They think that actually came down to part of the system tripped, and because they're so heavily reliant on just wind and solar, that just propagated through the whole system, crashed the whole system.
We're the envy of the world.
Exactly.
For our firming capacity of what
Yes.
hydro offers. The problems with putting wind farms and stuff everywhere, it's problematic to keep that stable.
Yes.
So common sense tells you, instead of having it everywhere and complicating things, it would be best to just isolate it to the most suitable place if you can, and it makes it a lot easier to control. And I think you're a little bit off on the Marinus, because the documents I've had, under Marinus, power prices are going to go through the roof. Without Marinus, they're still going to go up, but nowhere near. This is mum and dad and major industrials. With no Marinus, our prices are still going to go up, but nowhere near where they will under Marinus. So I would take a very, very cautious approach to this renewable energy. Like I said before, batteries, the technology's coming along all the time. So to lock ourselves into something that is going to cost, well, originally it was going to be 2 cables for 2.2 billion, I think, or around that mark.
But this is
now it's 1 for 5,
well,
and the costs are still going northwards. Like, hello.
Yeah.
Just let's take a little deep breath. Let's do a staged approach with whaleback, and just see where things fold after that.
But the other side of that, though, is if we don't actually get in and get Marinus happening, it more than likely will be too late. So, but the other side of this debate that probably gets missed is we've got a major problem in Tasmania, and the Treasurer even highlighted it this week, which is own source revenue. So the amount of money we're bringing in compared to the amount of money we're spending, there's a big gap there. It's about $1.5 billion a year. So if we can actually get this whole energy piece right, we can actually turn hydro into more of an own source revenue, like it even more so than it's been in the past. Obviously, it's had a very bad year this year.
Mm. Yeah, the profit's down to 5 million, I think.
Yeah. And
Which is-
also, we know that the Liberals have basically stripped all the profits out of hydro in the good years. And now, when they come to do things like fix up Tarraleah or update their systems, because we know that these systems are actually aging and they're going, and this is the other part of this whole debate too, is we need income from something like Marinus will generate, because our dams are getting old, the machinery's old, it needs to be replaced, and that's going to be very expensive. And if we don't have Marinus and we don't have that income, then the same mum and dads are going to be paying extra just to keep our own system going, because we won't have that extra revenue. So this is, I suppose, it is a very complicated
it is
topic, and we have to, as a party, have a view of what's in the state's best interest, and the bigger view, rather than the view of we don't want landholders done over. We want them to be adequately compensated, but we also have to have a look at think about the state's best interest, because it could actually be us who is delivering it.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, the spirits, this is the biggest infrastructure project in our state's history, Marinus. Seeing what's happened with the spirits, I wouldn't have any confidence in this government delivering any of this on time within budget. And I've had the benefit of sitting on the energy committee, and there's a lot of stuff I can't talk about there because we're, secret
In committee,
squirrel, secret squirrel stuff. But my concern, the stadium has been a huge distraction from the big thing, and that is what Marinus represents. So, like under Marinus, with everything, and if we get to stage 2, our debt will blow out from $3 or $4 billion, what it is now, to around 20 billion.
These are actually big numbers as well.
They're huge numbers, and I think the seduction in it all is the fact that this government has ran us into so much debt. They're looking at Marinus as a means, and hydro, to getting us out to get these super profits. But then you factor in what we're going to have to do to offset the 50% transmission spike for the major industrials. We have to offset those profits to that. And then what it means for mum and dad power prices. I'm assuming if our power prices are going up 53%, there's no way that anybody in this state, especially your mum and dad people that are already in a cost of living crisis, there's no way they can accommodate that. So then we're going to have to offset or subsidise that in some way, shape or form. So to me, it's a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, but that is absolutely the conversation too, is that if we're making money by clipping the ticket, so there are times even now where we get paid to take the mainland's power when the price on there's so much electricity generated on the mainland that they've actually got to get rid of it. And they do that. They actually pay us to take that electricity at times. And then when there's a big spike in the market, we turn around and send it back at 100 times or 1,000 times the price sometimes. So if we can get obviously really good at clipping the ticket, or firming getting the real money from firming the wind farms when the wind stops blowing, then we're going to have money and allow us to offset those impacts. So
that sounds good in theory.
It does.
But coming back to my point, would you have any confidence in this government to deliver this on time and within budget? And
absolutely not.
I don't.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't trust them to deliver a letter to the post box. But we and this is part of the frustration in operating in opposition, is we get briefed when we ask for it, and absolutely that the government has to allow us to have that brief, and typically they only do that when it's in their own best interests.
Exactly.
So we aren't exactly operating on 100% of information like they are.
No.
And then they're very terrible at trying to convince people of anything. And so because they're not informing, it's very easy to fill the space with stuff that probably isn't true. And then they have to come back in later and try and convince people that this story that's got going isn't actually true, and so on and so forth.
That's exactly right. And you have to ask yourself the question, why aren't we like the whole estate business? They said we'd have plenty of chance to go over that, but it was brought in caretaker mode. They gave us a couple of hours with a heavily redacted, I'm very, very suspicious on what they're trying to hide, because they're definitely trying to hide and withhold information from us that are there, that should have all the information to make the best call for the benefit of all Tasmania. But they are doing stuff in secrecy, they're denying us access, and you have to ask yourself the question, why?
So I think there's two ways that it could be. The old saying, it's either conspiracy or incompetence, you're probably better off going with incompetence.
And what's the other one? If it smells like a duck and looks like a duck, it's a duck.
It quacks as well.
Well, whatever, quacks as well. So you know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I mean, that's why we get dragged down with that as well. So the lack of trust in politicians is an issue that's as long as there's been politicians. They don't help it by just being secretive all the time, even dragging out even the most basic information. And some ministers are way worse than others. There are ministers who go out of their way to be honest and try and inform, but there are others who do completely the opposite. And I mean, I've sat across there in estimates and basically one day I was going to ask the minister what his name was, so at least I get an answer to something. It was that bad, just reading out the talking points and not actually answering the questions. So I think if the government were honest, just said, this is the situation. Okay, power prices are going to go up, but they're going to go up a lot more if we don't, or, actually give you the whole truth. So the moment I think that they believe the moment that you say power price is going to go up, they will lose the debate, because the debate is complicated, as I've alluded to. And I'm not 100% informed either.
No.
But when it comes to the farmers themselves, they need to be compensated.
Yeah.
And I know you're working for them, but I actually got a bit of experience with easements and with having easements acquired and so on, because our property at Gawler, we had the gas pipeline go through. We've had that. We had land acquired for the step-down facility so the gas could get into Simplot. So that was actually acquired from our property. We actually had the water main from Simplot ran through our property, and when Dad purchased, that happened before we bought the farm, before I was born, we had an agreement on the title, I think it was on the title, that we got free water in perpetuity because this pipeline was running through the property. And then what happened when there was some changes to water laws, not the big ones in, 99, the ones before then, they argued that perpetuity didn't actually mean forever. And so we actually lost that free water. So we had all our troughs set up to run off this pipeline, the free water coming from Simplot, untreated and everything. So I do have a bit of experience in this, and I do feel for the farmers, and a lot of them have already got power lines.
Oh yeah, I think 80% just replacing existing structures and whatever that's already impacted. For the others, 15%. And he wouldn't give us a straight answer. I kept asking how many people are affected. He wouldn't answer. Found out there's 40 still haven't signed up.
Yeah. But the other side of this argument, and it gets back to what's in the state's best interest, is there is a reason we have compulsory acquisition laws, and that is because some things are in the state's best interest, and that's why our land was acquired for the gas pipeline. That easement was acquired for the gas pipeline. It would have been hard to go anywhere else. So, and when we come to Parliament, there's actually acquisitions happening all the time. So quite often in tabling of papers, they'll just table some compulsory acquisitions, taking slices off people's property, mainly for roads. But there have been some big acquisitions when I think the power line was updated through the Central Highlands into Hobart. They put up new towers. I think the old ones, they haven't knocked them down yet, but they're going to.
A few have.
Yeah.
And they've been pulled apart. They leave. Yeah. I think it's up to the farmer. They give him the opportunity. He can have all the material if they want. Right. And I saw a fella up near Bothwell last year pulling them apart and disassembling when they put the other ones up. But, it comes back to the Liberal Party. They don't give a damn about anyone except their party and their donors. That's that's born self-evident with the greyhounds and everything else. And they do have the ability to forego or not impact a lot of these farms by putting the infrastructure and everything in one
Yeah.
place and,
Yeah.
and being sensible about it. And I guess my view, I'm here to represent the best interests of
Yeah.
my electorate. And if you can forego the impacts or minimise the impacts, not only on farmers but on forestry, migratory birds, whatever. If you can do that, I don't think there's been as much a focus on how we're going to do this without impacting all of these people and everything else. It's just let's put it in, let's go with the investors. I think they're an investor-driven party, the Liberals. Let's
Yeah.
face it, they don't give a fuck about me and you. They don't. I can
Yeah.
tell you know that.
Oh,
And the greyhound industry's found that out, and others are finding it out all the time. So, you're the same as me. We want what's best for our electorate here. Braddon, to my mind, is the best electorate in the state as far as the diversity of what we've got, the mines, the fisheries, the scenic beauty, and everything else. We've got it in abundance, and I just want to see things done properly and minimise those impacts on the
Yeah.
community and all concerned. And I don't have any faith in the Liberals. Theirs is a veil of secrecy. They won't give you access to the documents you need to make the informed decisions. And my awareness just gets super heightened. I've in the private world before politics, when you've got people that are cloaked in secrecy and only telling you a little bit of the information, don't worry, we've got it all in hand. We'll look after you. Like my suspicions just go through the roof. And also being in this position, having access to experts like Bruce Mountain, they'll discount him because he's too close with the Greens and what have you, but he sits on the Victorian Energy Policy Council. I listen to people like that. I don't give a damn with their background or who they're associated with. I don't distinguish. I just like to hear the information and look at the person and what their knowledge base is based upon. And I guess that's why my hackles have been raised considerably. I'm getting mixed messages.
Yeah, but I'm glad you did say minimise the impact, because there will be an impact.
Oh,
no
there
matter
will.
what.
There
Yeah.
will. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But let's do it in a sensible way and absolutely minimise and think of our community.
But the frustrating thing for me, and I've met with farmers, is they can't get the straight answers. Okay, like if you're
No.
we've got towers already.
Yeah.
Are you going to take away the old ones?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. No. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that lack of clarity, really.
Once again, division.
Yeah.
You look at everything. The Liberal Party, they thrive on division. If we're not divided, they're not relevant. That's as simple as that. They know the divide and conquer approach. You look at our fishing approach to management of fisheries. They kept the recs and the pros separate. And we're arguing and squabbling amongst ourselves, and then they're doing what they want.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting all those differing views at the one table, and you silence the rat bags. If you bring them out in a public forum where you've got everyone there, I think that's the way going forward.
So do you think then, if politics was just brutally honest, like just like this is exactly what's happening and this is why it's happening, black or white, like good or bad, give you all the information, what do you think would happen? Or is that just a utopia? What would you do then? Because then you'd have to sift through the information and.
Yeah, well, my role, and like I said to Cody when we first got in, if we only achieve one thing, and that is inform my electorate about the nuts and bolts and everything we can, we've achieved quite a bit, because the newspapers don't want to do it. The narrative's all controlled there. I've seen that. I've experienced that. That's one thing I have learnt. They control that, and they're very good at it. They're very well resourced. They're very well connected. The business world and the Liberal Party.
So what happens when you're wrong, though, Garbo?
Well, you admit it, and you say, "Well, I got this wrong," and I think right now, it's been mentioned to me by a few people that wouldn't have. They'd be very encouraged by any of us admitting that we got it wrong. So that's the human element of it all. Yeah. So
Well, it's interesting because, like, I'm like a scientist, so good science is show me the evidence. And if you show me the evidence, I'll change my mind, because that's my job. It's politics is a little bit different, because as I've highlighted, when you do change your mind, you get absolutely butchered for it for years years and years. So it almost creates that resistance to admit you're wrong because you get punished even if you've changed your changed your mind for the right reasons.
I think in this job you just got to forget about your own well-being
Yeah.
and what it means for you, and just one of my mates pulled me up one night. I was having a game of chess with him. This was prior to being elected, and I wished I'd said something at a meeting. And I said to him, and it was really topical, and it would have changed things dramatically. And he got up on his high horse and he said, "For God's sake, man, if something needs to be said," and he slammed the table. He said, "Scream it out, scream it out." And that's the approach I've taken. I'm not worried about my own welfare and being re-elected. My role is to give the information, warts and all, to the community. And I think that's why I've got some pretty strong support. And let's face it, you can do that as an independent.
Yeah.
You can. You can have your own view and you can swap around and change and what have you. And I think that's really, really important. Our role is there to make sure that the community is informed, so when they're making a decision, go into that ballot box, that they know exactly who they've got and what you're prepared to do. And I guess I think that's why I'm reasonably popular, because I don't care about my own welfare.
But in saying that, though, do you acknowledge that there is a place for stability that a political party presents?
Oh, yeah. My role as an independent in there, I can't run government. It's up to it is the Westminster system. There's the opposition and there's the government of the day. My role is to inform myself and then back whoever on the information that I've got at hand. I put aside my personal stuff. I have to.
Well, but you really? So
well,
you are very passionate about certain issues, and I know that you do get that bit of white line fever. You can see you.
Oh, I'm the same as you. You do the same. You get up there and rattle it into them when you're fired. You can see you're firing, and you can see it bubbling inside you. And
I hate hypocrisy. That's the thing that I really hate. And there are, that's the thing that fires me up. And if I'm ever a hypocrite, I hope that I cop an absolute flogging. But what I mean is, sometimes the passion can cloud judgment, and also you've got this thing called confirmation bias, that when you get information that reinforces what you already think, you take that in, but all the other evidence that is against what you think, you dismiss it. And we see that all the time. I mean, do you think that you've been guilty of that? I think we all are to a certain extent.
It's a bit hard to look at yourself subjectively. I probably have. Probably have. I don't know. You're probably a better one to answer that one than I am, because, like I say, it's hard to subjectively look at yourself.
Well, that's probably a family's role as well, is to say, come on, pull your head.
Oh, yeah.
That happens to me occasionally. So
I'm very lucky. Beck, my partner, she's quite intelligent. She's politically minded. And like you, she hates hypocrisy. What I meant, though, by putting aside my personal stuff, like I got elected, calamari was a big issue for me. I haven't got anywhere near that because I've come in and then, as you know, you can come in with the best of intentions with a focus on one thing, but then you've got all this other stuff that is probably more relevant, more important, that you have to put aside your personal sort of thing and concentrate on this. And what I've found as an independent, I don't have the luxury of a ministry to focus solely on one thing. I'm getting hit with everything.
Yeah.
And
that one individual. Yeah, that is
obviously
a downside.
It is a challenge, but
we'll put a mic in front of you and say, okay, Craig, what do you think about, I don't know, whatever it is, the three-spotted frog, or this particular housing development, or a high-rise building, a cable car, or you could throw 101 issues at you, and then you're supposed to have an opinion, especially if your vote may just be crucial.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I take my job very serious. I do. It mightn't look like it, but I do. I really think about things, and some things are clear to me, and I won't budge on them. But other things,
I just want to know if you can help me out here. Has there been a debate, especially if it was me that was doing the debating that's changed your mind on an issue? So I've said something that you've just gone, yep, I'm going to vote that way because of something. You talked about listening to the debate. Give me an example of where you've swapped your mind, where you've changed your mind based on a debate.
Geez, I don't know. I don't know, mate. We've had that many things that have been going on in there. Let me think.
We'll give you some thinking music. We got some thinking music.
You need a long one, I reckon.
No pressure. No pressure.
No, I don't know whether it's because I'm a bit shabby and
late night.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of late nights sitting this week, so we can all be forgiven.
I'll be honest with you, like the last 5 weeks, last week, GBEs, there was nothing there that I wanted to question on the Wednesday, and I just couldn't get out of bed, so I just stayed there for the day. I was worn out. That's the other thing. Like, I can chop 8 metres of wood in a heartbeat and come in and have a drink and not be as tired as what I have been sitting in that chamber and taking on board all that information. I come home, I'm totally knackered. And this last 5 weeks have been, 2 weeks sitting, GBEs, budget estimates, and then just this last week, it's no coincidence I just failed on the last day. I was fucked.
Well, and then also, the stadium debate thrown in as well. So it's been very intense.
Yeah, that's.
But let's just talk a bit. Then we could probably, move on to how you keep your sanity. So you talked about your physical body, like we were talking earlier about when you're a fisherman, you used to be lifting these crates of fish and you're out in the fresh air. And I mean, now you're riding your bike a bit because you've lost your license. But how do you try and keep that sanity?
Well, it's, as you know, a 4 or 5 hour drive back from Parliament gives you the ability to go over everything that's been said. You think it out till there's nothing left, and I get home and I'm an empty vessel, really. Beck started rambling on about the stadium last night, and I just looked at her and
I think we've all got PTSD about that one.
Oh, yeah, and other issues. So I just started laughing, and she looked at me, and she realised that I've just had 5 weeks of this.
Yeah.
So I just immersed myself with my kids, jump on the trampoline, cut a bit of wood. I cut water. We've got a spring on our property where I cut our drinking from. Just those manual tasks. And riding the bike, and any form of exercise for that matter. And being out in nature. If I've got any questions about anything and I'm a bit troubled, I just disappear in the bush or out in the boat. And inadvertently, you get your moments of clarity, your peace. What's that saying? Be still and know that I am God, and all that sort of stuff. Well, it's true. And that's why most of my mates now that I was the only one that had a fishing boat at the footy club back in the day. Now all those boys have got boats and they don't realise what they're doing. They're meditating. They're shocking fishermen. So they're out there staring at the end of the rod, waiting for a bite that's never coming. And then in the process, they just, it's meditation that they're. So, it's a number of things I do. But, physical activity and just getting lost in that.
Yeah, well, that's one big change I've made the last few years is to get back and do a lot more exercise and get out in nature. I've been doing a lot of bushwalks.
Yeah.
It's the only time that I really get off because you no phone reception and you can, there's no reason to look.
No. And I see a lot of our problems in society is people just disconnected. Look at the recent era with tablets and screens. Back in my day as a kid, we were all fishing or kicking the football or, doing something physical out. Now I've gone through towns driving and don't see anybody out in the yard kicking the football. They're all inside on the screens. So it's very important. I think that's where our youth, I see a lot of opportunities in the Braddon electorate, like our Aboriginal cultural history. Rocky Cape, the caves, Robbins Island, Premingana, the whole northwest is just testament to the Aboriginal culture. And I see a lot of opportunity to get our children out, getting involved with that, the history, pathways, the information, and just the cultural activities, just collecting and gathering food and teaching that. When things get complicated, you go back to the basics and food, health, companionship, and a bit of love, and and getting the community back together. So we've gone from meeting in the pub on a Friday. I mentioned this in one of my debates where in the top pub at Wynyard you had timber workers, you had sawmill operators, you had the forestry, you had the rail system, the people that worked on that, you had the ones that didn't work, the poachers, but the whole community was in that one space. It wasn't division throwing rocks at each other. They were enjoying each other's company. They agreed to disagree on things, but they did actually meet. And you look at the political side of things, in the day, they met in the hall. They raised their issues. Then they had a show of hands to send someone forth to represent them. You know? I think things always go full circle, and I hope that we get back to that, where the community are more engaged with politics. I've definitely dragged quite a few people into voting that never did. I had old people come up to me, I've never voted, boy, but you've given me a voice now, and I've got you. So all of us have got that responsibility to bring our different communities that we're engaged with back into that space, because it's really, really important, politics. And when I read a few years ago that if you had an issue and the community supported you and you put your hand up, and that's what it was all about, that was the role of Parliament. It was there for everybody. I thought it was just for shiny suits and whatever, but when I read that, I thought, well, that's right. And what I've learned since being in there, the whole thing is structured to help you, the clerks.
The library and the research.
All of that, and also the other players. You know, that's why it's important to me to have good relationships, because if you've got good relationships right across the spectrum in that parliament, you can go and knock on a door and ask questions and put forward. So that you know, it's been an interesting journey.
Oh, it definitely has.
For someone that never could, you know, if you'd have told me 12 years ago I'd do 7 elections, have 3 kids, 2 properties, I would have laughed the house down. I really would, because none of that was on my radar. It was remote, wasn't there. But that's the beauty of life, you know. Things change, and you roll with it. And you know, taking a step into Parliament was a big unknown. It was very unnerving. I'll be honest with you, because look at me. I'm not your average politician in a suit. That it wasn't a career pathway. It was a means to an end, I guess. And my word, I'm glad I've done it, because I had a lot of misconceptions about who people were in there and how it rolls. But I've seen firsthand now, and you know, that's given me the ability to relay to people in my electorate exactly what it's all about and who the people are. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions. Basically, we're all just normal human beings with families that want the best for this state, and that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, completely agree, and that's probably a good spot to end.
Yep.
So you get the complimentary broadcast mug. So I hope you.
Yeah, I'll take her. I'll take it
home
Parliament with me.
Yeah,
I'll sit it on the desk just behind you. I'll sit behind you in Parliament.
Yeah.
Which is
It's a funny spot, really. We're on the edge.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something you're slowly moving away from that.
I don't know. It's, you know, you never know what the future holds. You know, the old thing, one day you're the rooster, the next day you're the feather duster. And, But I think what we've got coming up next year is going to be very, very important for the state. And, you know, maybe we can get you on at some other stage and have a chat again.
Yeah, my word. Yeah, and I'll keep thinking about where I've been changed with the debate.
Especially if it was me that changed your mind. That's what I'd really
want. I've heard some crackers from you. And Josh Willie, he got up, he did a beauty there one day, and I actually went over and said, that was gold, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, that was on the budget. That was before he became leader. Isn't it funny, like you can be on the bench, you're not a leader, but then you get thrown into that position, and then there's a whole different
realms there.
Yeah, where you have.
But I like it when you can get Rob Fairs laughing, you know, because he's sitting sort of in my eye line, and you know you're going well when Fairs he's having a laugh.
Yeah.
And
he's a good guy.
You try and make a point, but at times try and add a bit of humour every now and then, because we're in there a long time. But
I look at Fairs, and I thought, gee, you're on the wrong side of the chamber, Fairs. I think you're more Labor than like the work. Anyway,
I'd make that argument too, but maybe I'll have to get Rob on here to defend himself. But I think he's definitely a character, and we have big conversations about heavy metal bands and stuff, because he's fully
Metallica.
into Metallica. I was so jealous he went to see that. But
and one thing I'd like to add before we go is, isn't it good the diversity that we've got in there right at this moment?
I mean, it'd be great to have more Labor members, but
No,
I agree. Yeah, but it's it's when the rubber hits the road, right? So um, there are political parties for a reason, and stability. The Westminster system needs stability,
Mm.
and we haven't really got to that crucial point where it gets really tested, and that's when we'll know whether this is a good thing or not.
Well, I don't think we'll be seeing a no confidence motion brought on in the near or immediate future because everybody realises what's involved with that.
Yeah,
But
the
getting,
risks, let's say. Uh,
but that is an
yeah,
important role under the Westminster system. If need be, you have that avenue to drag a government that's out a bit rogue or whatever.
yeah.
So
And I think it might be a bit of a challenge not to try and bring them down because obviously the public didn't want an early election. They made that very clear. But I think we're going to have some very challenging times if we keep heading the direction we're heading, especially around the budget. And
yes,
so
yeah,
it'll be challenging times for us, and that's all part of what we've got ahead of us.
that's
So,
right. Yeah. No, I'm sure we'll be right. Just we'll see how she goes. But yeah, it's not like a job I've walked into and everything's running right and smooth because,
Well, the question in my mind is, has it always been like this, or is this different? Like I think, has it
Mm.
always been this sort of dysfunction or this?
Well, we've had the division for a long time, haven't we?
Mm.
With forestry, salmon, with a lot of different things. So,
But is that a bug, or is that the way that it's programmed? So that's the question in my mind.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think there's some that benefit out of the division, us squabbling, fighting amongst it.
Anyway, we'll wind it up there. Thanks for
Righto.
coming in. Now, if you really like this sort of content, like and subscribe. So make sure that you hook up to the broadcast. So next time we have a really interesting guest on, like Craig Garbo Garland, you'll get the notification and you'll be able to watch it. And I'm sure we're going to hand this over to Garbo's crew. So he'll probably chop this up into 100 pieces, the bits where he sounds really good. We'll keep the bits that we sound really good. And but anyway, if you like this sort of content, then like and subscribe, and we'll keep putting it out. We've got some interesting guests lined up, and we'll keep doing more of it to peel back the layers so that people get an understanding of what it's really like in politics. And as you saw from today, it's not all hating each other. We actually, get along, and we're trying to do things for the best interest of our state. But anyway, until next time, thanks for watching the broadcast.
Good on you, Shane.